Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to today's presentation on the HathiTrust Emergency Temporary Access Service. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat window at any time. I'm going to take care of a few more housekeeping things before we get started. All right, Sandra, you want to advance to the next slide? All right, because we have so many people on our call today, we're not going to allow any video or any interaction of participants. So we ask that you please keep your video off and your microphones muted. They should mute automatically when you enter the webcast here. And if you have any questions, please use the chat window at any time. We have HathiTrust staff on hand to answer any questions in the chat, and I will also read some questions aloud at certain points during the presentation. A little trick with BlueJeans here, if you want to adjust how the screen layout looks, you can hover your mouse in the lower left of your screen and you can make some adjustments to how the screen looks as far as ratio to presentation and how we look on the screen. All right, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sandra McIntyre to get started.
Great, thank you, Melissa. Hello, everyone. We're excited to meet with all of you today and to hear how we can help you with your implementation of HathiTrust's Emergency Temporary Access Service. I'm joined today by many of HathiTrust's small staff, and they all stand ready to answer your questions. But first, 4 of us are going to give you an overview of the service, which we affectionately call ETAS, and share our tips for supporting users at your institution and for making the most of the service. This overview should take 15 to 20 minutes, and then we'll devote the rest of the hour to your questions and answers for them. First, let's take a look at some characteristics of the service, the fair use basis for it, and where we are with delivering it to our members. A little over 7 weeks ago, in response to the COVID-19 emergency and this unprecedented interruption to library services, we began to develop what we see as a careful, lawful approach to providing emergency access to copyrighted materials. Our service is designed to enable the educational and research uses of the copyrighted materials, and accordingly, we're constraining the access to faculty, staff, and students who are engaged in the active mission of your colleges and universities. The service gives access to titles held at each member library in print, which titles are no longer accessible due to the emergency, where a digital copy is also available in HathiTrust. We've set it up for online reading primarily. No broader distribution of copies is allowed. Let's talk about some aspects of the service quickly. First, this service must be due to an emergency. The key criterion is that users can't access your library's print collection in the normal ways because of an emergency situation beyond your control. This access may be impeded for various reasons, but for most of you, the clearest case is because your library and your collections are closed. Also, the service is viewed as temporary for the duration of the emergency only. We're currently treating this emergency as one that will end, or at least wax and wane in its intensity over time. And as it does, we'll be looking initially at the same factors that we use to approve the activation of the service at each institution as we consider whether we need to deactivate it at your institution. However, we recognize that there may not be a clear path yet for many libraries in how or when they begin to return to regular services, and we'll be reevaluating this as conditions change. We've been pleased to receive so many requests for the service, 170 so far. 167 institutions have been approved and activated. If you're one of the institutions that hasn't been, if you're on this call because you're interested in the service, we encourage you to apply for it, and we can work with you to see if we can approve you and turn your institution on for it. Several member libraries couldn't meet our criteria at this time. We've had several requests from non-members. We're working with some of those to become members. We have several more requests in process right now. We're particularly working actively right now with our members outside the United States on an alternative approach to being able to activate them. Now that most of you are activated, we have several things we want to ask of you. First, Please, according to the terms of service that you've agreed to in accepting this service, please avoid lending print books or serials that are accessible to your users as digitized works in HathiTrust. This means no curbside delivery of those titles or mailing of print works to your users in their offices or homes. Please respond to user requests instead with a link to the HathiTrust version of the item. We'd also encourage you to promote the service, support your users, and we're going to be sharing some tips with you today about how to do that. Please also work with us to optimize the service at your institution. And again, we have some more tips for you today about that. And then finally, please inform us when your circumstances change, when you can again provide normal access to your print collection. Before I pass this off to another one of our staff members, I just want to also give a great shout out to our content contributors who've made this service possible for us. It's because we have this collaboratively developed collection that has been built up over many years, and the scores of HathiTrust members who've dedicated lots of time to uploading their digitized items and their digitized metadata to go with that we can offer this service. We will continue to provide access to the fullest extent allowable by copyright law, and you can be sure we will continue to work to find ways to expand that access to the scholarship held by our member libraries for all of you. So for sharing your content and metadata and making our collaborative work possible, we thank you. And now I'll pass it off to Angelina Zaitsev.
Thanks, Sandra. Hello, everyone. I'm Angelina Zaitsev. I am the User Services Librarian for HathiTrust. And in my role, I lead the HathiTrust User Support Team, which is a collaborative team composed of staff and librarians from your institutions. Over the past couple of months, I've been monitoring the tickets that have come in and paying attention to the kinds of inquiries we've been getting through user support. So today I'll be providing information about the most frequent questions we get asked in order to help you better serve your own patrons. Next slide, please. You can find much of the same information that I'll be talking about today on our website. The 2 web pages linked here were written with our end users in mind, so please feel free to share these pages with your own users or repurpose the content to create communications materials for your campuses. Next slide. One common point of confusion occurs around who has access to ETAS. Our usual access services include broader categories of users such as alumni and retirees. However, for ETAS, we had to restrict which categories of users are eligible to access these books. We are providing this service only to current students, staff, and faculty. This service is not available to other courtesy groups that your libraries typically serve, such as alumni, retirees, and other affiliates. Please keep in mind that we don't control who is categorized as a current student, staff, or faculty. This is set by the IT unit on your campus that manages accounts for your university. The account metadata is then transmitted to us through Shibboleth, and we accept the values that they set. Next slide. We've been receiving a lot of questions from users and librarians about which books are included in ETAS. We can only provide your users with access to HathiTrust books that are also held in your libraries. The matching that we do is based on print holdings data that we receive from you, and Melissa will talk about that more in a few minutes. Our matching is based solely on OCLC numbers. We don't use any other metadata fields to compare your catalog records to our catalog records. As a result, as those of you who work with catalog records know, this is an imperfect science, and we're not able to provide access to HathiTrust books in a number of situations. If your record doesn't have an OCLC number, if our record doesn't have an OCLC number, or if the OCLC number in your record doesn't match the OCLC number in our record, all of these scenarios can prevent a user from accessing a copyrighted HathiTrust book. We also can't do manual corrections to our underlying data or turn on access one book at a time. Next slide. In contrast to our usual member benefits, which allow logged-in users to download full PDFs of books, there are more restrictions on temporary access books. Users can read and view the book online. They can also download one page at a time, but they can't download the whole book in one go. Next slide. In addition to the limit on downloads, there are a couple of other limits in place. The number of copies that are available for simultaneous access is based on how many copies you reported that you hold on your shelves. For example, if your library holds 3 copies of a book, then 3 users from your campus can access the HathiTrust copy at the same time. Users can also check out a book for 60 minutes. At the end of that 60 minutes, if they're still actively reading the book, their access will automatically renew. However, if there is a lull in their activity at the end of that 60 minutes, then another user can check out the book. This works pretty seamlessly for the most part and prevents any one user from hogging a book for weeks on end. If you hear reports from any users that they are being logged out and losing access to the book before their 60 minutes ends, please let us know, as this may be caused by a persistent authentication bug that we've been working on for a few weeks. I'm happy to take any questions about the material I just covered, but for now, I'll hand it over to Melissa for the next section.
Thank you, Angelina. I'm going to talk about making the most of the service at your institution. Go ahead and next slide. So we have several links with member support documentation on our website regarding how to integrate records into your catalog, how to interpret your overlap reports. And just a reminder, we are going to share these slides with attendees after the presentation today. So all these links will be sent to you later. Okay, next slide. I'm going to talk about updating your print holdings. So access to materials is limited to the items that you have in your print holdings, which is based on HathiTrust's most recent print holdings from you. At this time, we cannot make incremental updates, but you can update all your print holdings at any time following our instructions that are shown on the slide. Print holdings are processed once a month, and typically it takes about 2 weeks from the start of each month for the full update to appear and items to be accessible. Next slide. So at the time of the ETAS activation, the service contact received an overlap report showing which additional items from your physical holdings are available to your users in HathiTrust. This was also posted in your HathiTrust member box account that your print holdings contact will have access to. A document with more information on how to interpret the report can be found at our website at that link. If you send us new holdings at any time, we will upload those at our next build and send you an updated overlap report. Next slide. So the simplest and most basic thing you can do to integrate Discovery into your local catalog is to alert your users to visit HathiTrust and log in. It's so important to log in to receive member benefits. We have also created a new page that has instructions on 3 different methods to integrate the ETAS records into your catalog, and that link is shown here. These were developed by working with several members that have shared the amazing ways that they achieved this. And so Jessica is going to talk a little bit more about how to share examples with us and how to let us know. So next I'm going to turn it over to Jessica to talk about promoting HathiTrust.
Great, thank you, Melissa. So integration is one fabulous way that you can let your users know right there in the interface that what they are looking for is available through the ETAS service. But if you're not integrating records into your catalog and your campus community doesn't know that this option exists, then they may not recognize the resources they need that will help them continue their teaching, learning, and research. So I'm going to point you to some materials that you can use to promote the service and help you connect with other member libraries on how they promoted the service on their campus. So next slide, please. So we have done some analysis that shows that those libraries that have been promoting ETAS on their campus have increased usage over libraries that have not done any promotion. So promoting the service for your patrons is important so that they know what they can access now that they can't get to print collections, and what to look for in HathiTrust or in your catalog. And when they know, they see the value in your library on campus in ways that maybe they haven't before. And if your library is delivering what your campus needs now during this crisis, it's likely that your academic leaders are also seeing that value. And I know that that's important to all of us right now too, that our value as an academic library is recognized by those at the upper echelons. So the quote here that you see is from Virginia Steele, who is the university librarian at UCLA, and feel free to steal, borrow widely if this speaks to you as well. Next slide, please. So we, as Melissa said, we have provided some initial tools to get people started on promotion, and those are available at the link that you see at the bottom of this slide. There's a toolkit, we've got a newsletter item, there are some social media examples, but really what we have seen explode is the content that has come out of the member libraries. So there are training videos, there are blogs, there are libguides, catalog interfaces, all kinds of social media posts that we have seen come through and that members have shared with us. So that's what I want to help you get connected with on this next screen. Next slide, please. So on this first webpage, the member materials webpage, are samples of what actual member libraries have created to get the word out about ETAS on their campus. I'm continuing to add to this, and the place where I'm getting some of these additional examples are on the collaborative Google Doc, where you can link and drop in anything that you have created on your campus to promote the service. So hopefully you can all start sharing some resources and help each other out as you, I think, continue into the next future terms. It occurred to me that many terms are winding down now and new ones starting, so there may be a fresh opportunity to get the word out about ETAS to new students and new folks who are teaching and learning this coming semester. So we will be sending out a survey after this session to gather more ideas about what we could create to help you support ETAS on your campus, or what we could talk about in future virtual office hours. So I will encourage you to complete that survey when it goes out. And I believe, got one more slide here. Next slide, please. I know that as we are all isolated, you may not be hearing all of the sort of testimonials that might be coming out of your campus. So I thought I would share a couple here on how ETAS is actually making a difference for your academic communities. We've heard about dissertations continuing because of an item they've been able to locate as temporary access through ETAS. Certainly undergraduates are able to continue in some of their classes and access materials that way. And just overall, I think that by promoting the service on your campus, you will be able to reach more people who can benefit from the service as well. I think at that, I will turn it back over to Sandra and we can continue talking about ways that we can help. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jessica. And now if Angelina and Melissa can join us, oh, great. We will take a look at what questions have cropped up for our staff in the chat window. And do please continue to add questions there as you like. And Melissa's going to guide us through some of the shared questions now.
Sure. So first one is for Sandra. Can we provide curbside pickup to patrons who are not eligible to eat in ETAS?
Well, our provision of the works is contingent upon the exclusivity of them, so you would not be able to continue the print lending in any fashion. Please refer to our terms of service related to that and make sure that you're conforming with them.
All right, for Angelina, In the event of the authentication problem, what specific information would you like included in the problem report sent to user support?
So Christina did answer this a little bit in the chat. It would be helpful for us to have the URL of the item that they were accessing in order for us to try to find the information in our logs. In addition, you can encourage your users to contact us directly with problem reports at the feedback address that's listed here so that we can follow up with the user in case there are any follow-up questions about their problem.
We had a current community member now located abroad, specifically in Europe, who reported problems in gaining access to HathiTrust items. Is that just a fluke?
Our expectation is that when users are located outside the US, they should be able to log in with their university accounts into HathiTrust and should be able to access ETAS items. If they're not able to see any of the temporary access items, there might be a problem with the account information that we're receiving from the university campus, or there could be something else going on. So to troubleshoot that, please do contact us because they should be able to access temporary access items overseas.
So multi-volume sets are sometimes problematic if the local volume information enumeration isn't formatted identically to that in Hathi's system. Is there any way to fix this for titles that match the OCLC number?
I imagine for that we do need to have a local match. We've got, when we have multi-volume sets, we do need to have it, we do treat them independently of each other. So we're looking for your holdings for each volume in order to qualify people at your institution to take a look at that volume. So this would be a question for you to consider whether you want to update your print holdings and make that work for those as well.
Is there a way to tell how much use the ETAS material is getting by our users?
We have developed a plan to share usage data of ETAS items within the next couple of weeks. So you will soon receive a notification when the usage reports are made available to you. So we'll definitely be sharing that.
What should we do if we find that we do not have access to a book that we do own in print? How can we correct this? I can answer that. And just a reminder that access to materials is limited to items that you have in your print holdings, which is based on HathiTrust's most recent print holdings from you. So an item that has not been matched or was missing from your print holdings will not be accessible. In order to correct this, please start with the team at your library who handles the print holdings process to verify that this item was included in your most recent print holdings submission. And if it was not included, you could submit a new print holdings report to get this updated. We are able to accept incremental updates. We are not able to accept incremental updates. So an entire new print holdings report is required. Next question. Could you clarify download restrictions again? For instance, why is it only page by page? Are book chapter downloads possible?
So we put this restriction in place because these materials are copyrighted. So it was our interpretation with guidance from our legal counsel to make this restriction necessary. When you are talking to your patrons about ETAS items, please remind them that these materials are copyrighted and that they should not be widely distributing these books. If the user tries to download all the pages in a book one page at a time, they may experience some slowdown of their experience because we do have some throttling mechanisms in place. Sandra, do you want to add anything to that about?
Just to point out that, we're wanting to allow some minimal fair use, just as you would for a print book in your library. If someone wants to scan or photocopy a couple of pages for use, that's acceptable in your library. So we're allowing some page-by-page download here. But we expect that not to lead people to more extensive downloads, and people do need to use things online. So do observe our terms of service and remind your users of that, as Angelina said.
Okay, next one for Sandra. What is HathiTrust doing to consider different reopening policies or procedures libraries might have? For instance, what happens if some of our students are back but not all?
We recognize that people are tussling with a lot of hard decisions right now about how to open up for their institution, for their library, and that this is going to vary across different libraries extremely, maybe, and that folks are still making those decisions. We want to work with all of you and listen to all of you about what that looks like for you, and try to make sure that we can continue to give you the maximum access to titles that your students, faculty, and staff need. But right now, we don't know exactly what this is going to look like. We're trying to imagine it. We're trying to imagine all the different questions that we need to ask of you. You can be assured that we'll look to make the access as long, continuing, and as wide as possible within legal constraints.
Angelina, could you describe the check-in process? How does someone know when they can get a book and it is not checked out?
Sure. So I do want to refer you all, I'm going to paste a link into the chat, to this page, which is a step-by-step description of how to access ETAS books, and it includes some screenshots of the experience with the different messages that appear in the interface. So when a book is currently checked out to another user, and a user has successfully logged in and they've navigated to the page, they'll receive a message that all available copies are currently in use. Try again later. So that will notify them that they can't access the book at this time, but they may be able to access it in the future. And when a user has successfully checked out an ETAS book, the banner message updates to say this work is checked out to you until whatever timestamp that they have, and then the button that is in the banner message changes from a checkout button to a return early button. And when a user clicks that, which we encourage them to do as soon as they've finished reading the book will be checked back in and another user can access the book at their own time. So, yeah, I think that's basically it.
Okay. Would it make sense for a library to take physical copies out of circulation in order to allow electronic access through ETAS?
I can address that. The ETAS service is based on lack of access to your print collection. So but we aren't tracking how many copies you already have lent out. So this was something that we just viewed as unmanageable, and we thought we could tolerate the fact that many of you have already got some copies that are out in circulation. You probably don't have ways for people to return those that are working for you. So you don't need to account for that.
The documentation says that your request to the book will renew automatically unless another user requests the book after your hour is up. And they think that they're having trouble finding the request mechanism. It's confusing. Can you clarify that at all?
Yeah, so when we implemented the service, we don't have a mechanism currently and aren't at this point planning to have a mechanism that allows a user to request a book if someone else hasn't checked out, or to place a book on a hold list or anything like that. So it is a little bit different from some of the experience that users may have in other digital library sites. If they're used to using Libby or Overdrive, for example, they're used to dealing with hold lists and things like that. So there may be some user confusion around that. As I've said several times already, we'd love to hear more feedback and more information from your users if they're experiencing confusion.
Are you exploring enabling ILL with ETAS books? Could my users borrow a book from another ETAS library?
Take that. We currently don't have a way for that to happen. The access is given to your library for your students, faculty, and staff based on your print holdings. And we don't currently have a legal assessment of whether there would be any way to do it across institutions. And there's no technical way to do that. There's no way for you to take the entire copy, or for someone else to take an entire copy and to send it to you. As we said earlier, we're really trying to limit distribution of the copies and sending of copies to different places. And so we've chosen to have it be primarily web browser access only.
Can we still use the accessible text request service to provide access to books for print disabled users? I can answer that. Yes, we are still, that service is still available. If you are someone who is supposed to have elevated access to provide materials to print disabled users and you're having difficulty with your access due to the fact that you are working from home now, please email feedback and let us know, and we'll try to troubleshoot with you. And if your institution does not currently have anyone registered with elevated access to be able to take advantage of that service, again, email feedback and we will work to get you set up with the service. We may be facing a hybrid attendance for students, where some students may be accessing on campus while others will be accessing remotely. Any thoughts about how this would work?
That's going to be one of the more difficult scenarios for us to consider. And we recognize that that's something that many of you are facing. We honestly just don't know how to manage that yet. Our executive director, Mike Furlow, will be communicating with a lot of you in the next week or so about his evolving thoughts about where this is going to go. And so we'll continue to be in touch with you and to hear from you about what scenarios you're looking at.
Is the HathiTrust Research Center still available?
Yes, it is still going full guns. And in fact, we've got an opportunity for folks at your institutions to participate in the Advanced Collaborative Support Awards. If you have any faculty who are interested in working with HTRC staff on some text and data mining projects and receiving their support for that, compute support as well as staff support, please encourage those folks to put in an application. The deadline's May 31st, and you can find more information on our website.
Are you accepting new members? Yes, we are. So if you know of an institution that is interested in joining, have them visit our new How to Join page on our website and review the information. And there is also a link from that page to an application that they can fill out to get started on joining. Okay, any more questions? I think that is all I am seeing right now. All right, I think that we may be through all of the questions.
Great.
So if we don't have any more questions, go ahead, Sandra.
Well, some of us can stay online in case there are a few more, but we'll wrap it up here, and thank you all for joining us, and we hope that you'll be able to stay well at your institutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everybody.
It does look like we had a follow-up comment